Welcome to this Business New Zealand update for Friday, February the 25th. I'm Grant Walker. I'm joined by Business New Zealand CEO Kirk. Hope, nice to see you again, Kirk. Let's start with day one of phase 3 in the Omicron public health response. So what actually has changed for business, apart from the fact that we're a lot quieter?
Yeah, well, it's pretty significant actually, because obviously the isolation periods only apply to household contacts, whereas before it applied also to close contacts, so they would have been required to isolate for 7 days. So that's taken a lot of people out of businesses, as you've seen. So not only are businesses quiet because people aren't necessarily walking around, but some of them have closed because they had significant numbers of their staff having to isolate due to being close contacts. So that's fallen away. Now it's really down to people to manage their own health and for businesses to manage under the existing health and safety rules, probably using antigen tests and just keeping their people safe.
Rats now, of course, they're going to be allowed. They'll be sold retail shortly. Not arriving really next week is when they should start being available.
Yeah, there's about 10 million, I think, in the country now, but they will be much more readily available next week, and that'll allow both businesses and people just to manage their health much better than what we have been able to do so far.
All right, so phase 3, we basically have to learn to live with it all now. It's all changed.
Yeah, well, today I think there were something like 12,000 cases announced. So the best way is for people to manage this themselves in terms of using the rapid antigen tests to determine whether they might have COVID or not, and then taking the option to isolate. That's far better at this point, I think, in the cycle of Omicron than having lots and lots of people isolating because they've been in close contact.
All right, the COVID support payment now available to businesses. It has been announced, but since it was originally announced now, there is a bit of a change in terms of it was only originally going back 6 weeks, and it was a 40% loss of 6 weeks. But that's now changed to the period of, you can compare it now to the period of the 5th of January to the 15th of February 21. So that's going to help.
Yeah, that'll make a lot more businesses eligible. And I just really want to acknowledge the work of Julie White at Hospitality New Zealand, Greg Harford and Amy Hines at Retail New Zealand, Marissa Bidwar at the Restaurant Association, Viv Beck at Heart of the City, and my colleagues through the Business New Zealand Network and their advocacy alongside ours to try and get those rules changed, because what we found is that very few people under the original rules would have been eligible. So it's good that the government have listened, they've acknowledged that, and of course they want to support businesses through what for some will be a very difficult time.
So some people could apply now, but they might not be eligible for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. So there are 3 payments that are available over the next 6 weeks for 3 fortnightly periods. So the key thing is to make sure that businesses make an application for each one of those fortnights if they think that they're going to be eligible, and use whatever the test is, whether it's last year or whether it's the preceding 6 weeks that was referred to.
All right, well, the great news keeps coming because the Reserve Bank lifted the OCR by 25 basis points. There were big calls for it to go up 50, but it didn't in the end. So this is going to, well, there's also certainly more to come. So how are businesses feeling about this, bearing in mind it was pretty much expected?
Yeah, not unexpected. I mean, I think you've got the challenge of business. Inflation is as tough on businesses as increased interest rate costs. So, and the increased interest rates costs have been signaled for some time as we saw that inflationary pressure push up. Obviously, the events in the Ukraine won't help inflationary pressure. You're already seeing fuel prices, for example, or oil prices increase pretty significantly. Russia is responsible for about 10% of the world's oil production. Ukraine and Russia approximately provide about 25% of wheat production. So you can see that there will be inflationary pressure as a result of Russia's actions in the Ukraine. That's concerning for a whole range of reasons. We don't really need this sort of activity in Europe. We're not particularly trade exposed to it, but we are exposed to it from a supply chain and product perspective.
Well, what hope do we take from the fact that Finance Minister Grant Robertson is saying, yeah, it's going to be a tough few months, but he's expecting a really big bounce back?
Well, what you've seen in other countries as a result of Omicron winding down is effectively quite a flat activity for about a 6-week period, and then quite a strong rebound to pretty strong levels of activity through retail and some of those face-to-face businesses like hospitality. So hopefully that happens here. It looks like we're going to hit the peak pretty quickly, I would imagine, if you see the case numbers today around 12,000. Probably more than 100,000 people with COVID. That's not great, but the level of hospitalizations remain pretty low, and more importantly, the people in ICU remain pretty low.
So some pretty tough news, really, but some glimmer of hope and some help for businesses. Basically, that describes the week, doesn't it? All right. Well, let's hope things get better, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you, Kirk.